Hello everybody, it's Vade here, and I want to show you my endgame Moze build based around Dakka Bear and a defensive build. I'm not going for the highest damage that you can do with Moze, but rather the best combination, in my opinion, of a safe build with good damage along with that. So I'm going to do a short demonstration of me taking down Graveward at the Floating Tomb, just to show that you can get some good damage even with Dakka Bear, which is often considered to be underpowered, but if built right you can do some decent damage. I will also be showing a few tutorial items. So for instance, when I go through my skills and the loadout, I will be talking about that with the idea of teaching in mind for some people who might not be quite as familiar with the game. I will also be showcasing some arms race tips and some tips for farming eridium and good legendary items in the slaughter shaft. And then I'll finish up with just a non-narrated Maliwan Takedown run, just showing that I can sort of safely walk up to Wotan the Invincible and punch his lights out in reasonably short order. So that's the idea behind this. Let's get started here. So I'm using my quick movement gun. I'll talk about that in a bit. I'm now switching to my Guardian, which is my gun I utilize when in Iron Bear and Dakka Bear. So we're going to quickly hop out of here and show you what Dakka Bear is able to do. So, not the fastest time. It's certainly not a one-hitter, but not slow either. So even with the weakest portion of this build, Dakka Bear, you can still do decent damage. So let's take a look at the build and go over some of the reasons for the various items that I'm using with it. We're going to start with the main source of healing, or one of the two main sources of healing, and that is biofuel. So I've put 5 points into this, and what this means is that when Moze or Iron Bear ignites an enemy, then they regenerate health. And since we're going to be dealing mostly with time in Iron Bear or Dakka Bear, then the armor regeneration with 5 points will be 2.5% per second for 8 seconds. So what we want to do is have a build that procs biofuel on a regular basis. So to do that, we're going to need to ignite enemies. And so before I go up into the rest of the tree, I'm just going to roll over and say one of the main ways we're going to be getting ignition damage is through fire in the Skag Den. And with this skill, whenever you deal splash damage, then you deal bonus incendiary damage. And the bonus incendiary damage is 18% when you, well, 18% with the 5 points I've got invested in it, and also the class mod I've got on now puts 1 point into here. Let's go back and talk about the main part of this build, which is the purple tree. So I want to start with this tree and go through it. It's going to be an Iron Bear build, so we're going to go into really big guns for the 20% damage. We need to move up the skill tree, so we're also going to put points in Big Surplus. And Big Surplus is affecting your damage when your action skill is on cooldown. So a lot of the time in this build, one of the options is to use what's called a Rocketeer class mod, and when you have equipped that class mod, then if you fire up Iron Bear and then immediately step out, or whenever you choose to step out really, then you can jump into Dakka Bear, and Iron Bear will remain up in the Auto Bear form, fighting for the rest of the time that Iron Bear would have been available to you. And so if you hop out immediately with this build, that can be 2.5, 3, sometimes even more minutes that you will be up in Dakka Bear while Auto Bear is fighting. And Auto Bear is quite good at fighting as well. Now what the big surplus does for you when you're in Dakka Bear is it increases the damage from your turret while you're on cooldown. So that can be for 25 or 30 seconds. You can be getting this bonus damage. It's incendiary damage, and that incendiary damage will ignite enemies and proc your biofuel for healing. Further, we're going to go up. This will be immediately available. This increases your fire rate, which increases your damage. Stackable. But to go further up into the tree, we need one more point down below here, and I'm going to put that into increased movement speed. Now, this is your choice. You could put 3 points into this increased movement speed and not put everything into big surplus, or you'll have enough points to actually fill them both up if you want to. That's an option. I'm going to go here and put 5 points into Never Going to Give You Up, which returns 25% of fuel. And I think this skill benefits from having 5 points because even though it's diminishing returns, it's returning 25% at first, and then it has diminishing returns after that. Or perhaps the way they do it, up to 25%. When I look at it, I think they're returning 25% and then lesser amounts of that as time goes on. So even though it's getting diminishing returns, I still think my guesstimate or my estimation is you're getting more than you would get out of points in nitrotrinadium engines. Although I end up filling this up at the end. We're going to go into this skill, which adds damage. We're going to go into Feature Creep, which gives you 18% Iron Bear damage and 45% damage resistance. And then if you put 3 points into here, into your engines, that allows you to get to your capstone skill, Running on Fuel, which is when you ignite an enemy, then Iron Bear stops using fuel for 6 seconds. And I believe that also applies to Auto Bear from the way it feels when I'm using it. Now I choose to put 2 extra points that are available to us after we finish filling out the rest of the skill trees into here so that my cooldown is increased and my maximum fuel is increased. But that's where you could have gotten 2 points to say go into double time or someplace else in the other trees. Let's go on and talk about the other trees now. So we put 5 points into Skag Den. Also, I'm going to put 5 points in Stainless Steel Bear, so you increase your maximum fuel and the time you can stay in Iron Bear. Your armor is increased and your damage is increased. And that gets you the ability to get up to Auto Bear, which is a must-have for this build because you're going to need this in order to put Dakka Bear on top of it. The duration of this is 15 seconds, and you can increase that if you're using your Rocketeer class mod. But the other class mods, this lasts for 15 seconds, and so if you're using anything other than a Rocketeer, you're going to be concerned about having your cooldown finish up within that 15 seconds so that you can immediately fire Iron Bear back up. And not have to run around as Moe's taking damage. We want to get up high enough in this tree so that we can use the corrosive sabot rounds. So you have to get enough points in here that you could put points here. And then that will allow you to get your corrosive sabot rounds. And the reason that we want our corrosive sabot rounds is that they do splash damage as well as explosive damage. And what this does is proc your Skag Den, which then procs your biofuel for healing. So the corrosive sabot rounds do good corrosive damage, which damages armor-based enemies. But at the same time, it also procs your extra fire damage and your healing from your biofuel. So we're going to put points in Security Bear to get a shield. We need to go up the tree. Armored Infantry helps you when you're on foot. It reduces damage, etc. I'm not sure how much it might affect Auto Bear or Turret. The Drowning in Brass, my feeling is that affects Auto Bear and Iron Bear. and also your damage in the turret. Up here, experimental munitions. Whenever you get a critical hit, you get bonus incendiary damage. So this bonus incendiary damage is another poor source of proccing biofuel for healing. Full can of whoop-ass. Now you'll notice here they say that the shield recharge rate is 25%, and that's all they're talking about being in this skill. But when you go to various places like Loadout that has a skill calculator, they will mention with this that there is also 5 seconds of a 50% increase in damage reduction. And I'm just going to assume that that's true. I know that some of the information on Ludelman is incorrect. So for instance, the current iteration of biofuel says you're gaining 2.5% damage. On Ludelman, they list that as 5% rather than the 2.5. So I'm not positive that they're correct about the whoop-ass, but I don't have a better source of information on it. I've looked around, I can't find any better source. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that's here and use it to protect myself when I'm as Moze. And when this becomes important, when you might want this 50% damage and decrease for 5 seconds, is when you're hopping out of Iron Bear. So if you fire up Iron Bear and you're using Rocketeer, then you will immediately jump out of Iron Bear and step back and jump up into Dakka Bear. And that's the time that you're vulnerable, because Iron Bear is very tough and you tend not to get Iron Bear knocked out from under you when you're in Dakka Bear. It's very rare with this build. So the time that you can get killed is when you hop out and in that brief time that you're getting into Dakka Bear. At any rate, I'll talk more about that. We're going to need to get a couple more points in this lower portion of the tree in order to get up here and get our corrosive saber rounds. So I put 2 points into maximum shield and shield recharge rate. So at that point, you're able to get your corrosive saber rounds, and I've got that loaded here. So I'm using 2 railguns and 2 sabos so that they're both giving me healing, and it's a pretty good all-around weapon to use, so I don't find I need to switch to anything else with this build. So this is a Dakka Bear centered build for safety. So obviously you have to have Dakka Bear. We have to go further up into the tree, so Cloud of Lead is a good source of incendiary damage, which once again procs biofuel. And then this is another source of healing for you, redistribution. So whenever you score a critical hit, and that can be with your turret, and that can be with your Iron Bear guns, or also Moses guns, if you're having to use her, then you can get health. Now you also regain ammo, but with this build I use my weapons so seldom that gaining ammo is just not really a consideration. We're doing lots of damage with fire, and so this gets a 30% increase in damage with Stoke the Embers. Scorching RPMs is a good build, a good damage source for crit damage, fire rate, and Iron Bear damage. And then that gets us to the highest capstone we were reaching for in this tree, which is a 60% increase in damage when you're dual wielding weapons. And so that's what we're going for in this tree. And that brings us back to here. Now, a couple things I didn't mention here is with your big surplus, they mention that that is a bonus damage of 15% of gun damage. But my understanding, and I've not seen it officially mentioned, but lots of people talk about this, is this skill gets what's called mayhem scaling. So when you're in the higher mayhem levels, this will not be 15%, it'll be 15% times 31 is my best understanding of it. And I believe that happens with Fire in the Skag Den as well. Not all of your skills get this mayhem damage increase, and so it's good to take advantage of these. As far as mayhem mode goes, right now I'm running at 11. and this is just for general running around. But if I'm doing the slaughter shaft, I'll go down to 10, and I'll show you why when we discuss that. Let's talk about my loadout a little bit. I tend to run with Dark Army in my kit, but I find that I'm not using this very much anymore. The advantage that you get from Dark Army is that it runs clones of your weapons, and those clones can proc redistribution so that you get extra healing. But another thing that I'm using is a recurring hex. Now, a recurring hex splits into 2 grenades, and each of those spawn 3 Merv grenades, and so you're getting lots of grenades popping around, and those do explosive damage. And that explosive damage procs your fire in the skag den, it's area damage, and that procs your big surplus. Also, for some reason, I'm not sure why, but it seems to be proccing my redistribution, which is supposed to be based upon crits. Now, if you look in the skill tree here, what you'd expect is that you'd have to go up into pull the holy pin in order to get those critical damage benefits, but nonetheless, as a matter of experience, recurring hex is proccing those redistributions, so critical hits must be showing up from someplace. Now, the weapon I use when I'm actually in Iron Bear or Dakka Bear is the Guardian Angel, and this comes from your vault cards. Discuss that. Well, actually, I'll just show you real quickly here. These are your vault cards. Once again, since the tutorial, I'm going to say that here is where the Guardian's from, and in order to get this, you have to get keys. And so you have to activate, you can see on the lower right, how to activate this area of your vault card. As you're going through endgame content, you will be gaining experience, and as you gain experience, you'll gain vault cards that when you open those vault cards, they can give you some of these benefits, but they can also give you keys or diamond keys. It's a separate issue, and I'm not going to talk about them. But with these keys, you can open up things like the Guardian. And the Guardian is a very good weapon to have in Iron Bear, because not only can you put on an anointment, the anointment I have, you can see at the bottom of the description, is that railgun damage is increased by 150%. That's a noticeable increase in your damage when you're in Iron Bear, and it also seems to apply when you're in Auto Bear. So if you're up in the Dakka turret, it seems to me that Iron Bear or Auto Bear is still doing increased railgun damage when this anointment is equipped. Also on the Guardian, there is a hidden benefit that is not listed here, at least according to Ludelman, and that is a 400% increase in damage. Now, from reading the descriptions around, I believe that applies to splash damage. I'm not positive about that, but I do notice a distinct difference when I have the Guardian equipped in areas like the amount of damage that my hex grenades are doing. When I have the Guardian equipped, the damage from my hex grenades go up markedly, and these are being procced when I'm in Iron Bear by the anointment. So once again, at the bottom of the description, you can read that while Iron Bear is active, taking damage has a 20% chance to spawn a grenade. I know from experience that grenades are also proccing when you have Auto Bear activated and you're up in the Dakka turret. So in both instances, these grenades are being procced 20% of the time you're taking damage, which is a lot, and these are going out and they're doing damage, and they're proccing Skagden and your biofuel for healing. It's proccing redistribution for healing, and you get a great increase of damage when you're using the Guardian with its 400% increase. That also does a great deal to affect the turret damage when you are in the turret and Auto Bear is running. So if you're running, for instance, the Rocketeer, then you jump out of Iron Bear immediately, jump into your Dakka turret, and at that point, according to Littleman's description of the Dakka Bear, you are getting an increase in your turret damage, and Iron Bear, Auto Bear, gets increase in damage as well, which is a good thing because you're not getting damage for Auto Bear, according to Ludelman, from some of your skills like, the skill here in the purple tree, the really big guns. Apparently, this doesn't apply to Auto Bear, but in Ludelman's description of Dakka Bear, they're saying you get well, actually it says it here as well. Iron Bear damage is increased 50%. In Ludelman, they say that your turret damage is increased. And at any rate, if you are equipping your Guardian, your turret damage goes up greatly, and that's one of the reasons why I was able to take out Graveward very quickly, because you are doing decent damage when this is equipped. And that's markedly different than the damage you'll get when you have other weapons equipped. So that's why I choose it over the Dark Army, even though that may occasionally give you better healing. I don't find it's necessary. Something that I run with often is the craters. This comes from the Agonizer 9000. If you want to get this, you need to fight your way through a bunch of enemies to get to the end boss, and then you just keep restarting the game in order to farm him. And after about 20 runs, this will drop for you. I don't worry too much about the stats on this because I don't fight with this gun, at least not unless I forget to equip the Guardian. But on foot, I will always switch to a different weapon. This is just for the hidden advantage of this weapon. And the hidden advantage of this is plus 25% movement speed. And I know for a fact when you have this equipped, you are moving more quickly than you are without it. So I take that plus 25% speed, and I also get 25% plus, or 14 plus 14% movement speed increase from my artifact. So you put the 14% from my artifact on top of the 25% with the craters, and you can be moving about the battlefield pretty quickly. It helps you get from place to place quickly, and it also prevents enemies from being able to damage you. Explosions occur behind you, and they're not able to focus on you quite as well as they would be if you were moving slowly. So this is the weapon that I use for running around. Now, occasionally, you will not have your cooldown timer done if you make errors, or occasionally it happens, or if you do happen to take enough damage that Iron Bear gets knocked out from underneath you. Then the weapon that I use for running around and doing damage is the plasma coil. You get the plasma coil and the Dark Army from the arms race, which is a separate area that you have to go to and farm. And I will be talking about farming that a little bit later on. So the plasma coil is the weapon that I like to use because it does good high-end damage, and it also gives you the option of using different types of damage, and it does splash damage. So it's playing into your strengths as Moes by getting the advantage of Skagden and other skills which increase your splash damage increase. So this is good if you happen to be on foot, but most of the time when I'm using the plasma coil, it's because I am in fight for your life. On those rare occasions when it does occur, this is a good weapon for you to use to get out of fight for your life. And hopefully at that point you can jump back into Dakka Bear and all is well. So once again, if I'm using Rocketeer, then you're jumping out very quickly and jumping into Dakka Bear where you tend to be safe. But that's the time when you can get killed and have to go into fight for your life, and that's when you would equip this plasma coil. There are many other weapons you could use here. I would choose a high damage splash weapon, but your taste may vary. So here's the Rocketeer I'm using. The augments on it are 30% splash damage, 43% action skill damage, and the Guardian here, if you'll notice down below in the lower right, is a Hyperion weapon. And I think I've noticed a difference when I've got my Rocketeer equipped, that I do a little more damage when I'm in the turret. So something to consider there. The skills here, I just whatever. I would probably prefer to have more in the Skag Den, but this is the best one that I've gotten. So that's if I'm going to be staying in my Dakka Bear, and you would want to stay in your Dakka Bear, for instance, in the Slaughter Shaft, because there's not really any tough fighting there. A lot of it is just trash mobs that you just need to go through in order to progress in your rounds as you're going through the Slaughter Shaft. And so if you're in Dakka Bear, then Auto Bear is automatically eliminating enemies, and that's giving him healing and keeping him up. But it also means that if you want to, you don't even have to engage in the fight. You can be up in the Dakka turret and it just kind of half pay attention. And if you are farming the Slaughter Shaft, it may be that you just want to get to the end so that you can get the 500 eridium that gets dropped by the end boss there, or the Titan that appears in the last round. And maybe you just want to get through the rounds so you can get to that because you're just interested in the farming rather than having a great time shooting all the enemies yourself. So Rocketeer is a good mod to use, or a good class mod to use in those situations. The other times I'm using something like a Bear Trooper. And my Bear Trooper, the skills that it gives me are +1 into Security Bear, but it also gives me a couple into Grizzled and a couple into Explosive Punctuation. And when you're in Bear Trooper, your Auto Bear only lasts for 15 seconds. And so what you want is your cooldown to finish up in that 15 seconds so that you can fire up Iron Bear immediately after your Docketeer disappears underneath you. When that 15 seconds is up, you want to jump right back into Iron Bear. And so Grizzled and Explosive Punctuation, 2 points in each, help you do that. The augments on this are action skill damage, which increases Iron Bear and Auto Bear's damage. Action skill cooldown rate, and the other thing I've got in here is flayed off weapon fire rate, which does nothing for me, but this is the best one I've been able to get. So you want action skill cooldown as a potential augment on your class mods other than Rocketeer, because that time you want your 15-second cooldown. You want to complete your cooldown in that 15 seconds that Auto Bear lasts. But when you're in Rocketeer, you don't want your cooldown increased, because while you're in cooldown, you're doing that increased fire damage from your big surplus at the top end of your purple tree. So when you're in the turret and you're doing fire damage during your cooldown, you want that to last for as long as you can for those times when you're bothering to use your turret. So for instance, I had that damage when I took out Graveward just now. So on my artifact, I tend to run with something with Last Stand on it. And so Last Stand gives you 5 seconds of invulnerability when you go below 50% health. So when might you go below 50% health? When you jump out of Dakka Bear, or out of Iron Bear, and you're getting into Dakka Bear. That's the time when you can be hit really hard, and some enemies hit really hard. I've had 700,000 shields and been pretty much one hit. So nothing, you can get hit really hard at the higher mayhem levels. But if you have over 50% health, so for instance, if you didn't take 3 points into Thin Red Line, which would get you to 40% health. If you're above 50% health, then what happens when you get hit strong enough to take you below 50% health is there's a health gate that procs. And a health gate basically just says, we're not going to let you get one hit. No matter, you can have 1 million damage come in, but you're still going to be standing with a little bit of health, I'm not sure how much, after that hit. So that is just something called the health gate that does proc. But if you get hit that hard, any follow-on damage from different enemies, or if a dot, like an incendiary dot, damage over time, is placed on you, then you can go down very quickly. But if you have Last Stand activated when you go below 50% health, then you have 5 seconds of invulnerability. That's 5 seconds of invulnerability to allow you to get into Dakka Bear. So this can keep you from going into fight for your life quite frequently. Um, I find sometimes I still go down, but this seems to help that. With this, the augments I've got are health damage, and I'll talk about that in a second. Movement speed we've talked about. I like it. Shock resistance, well, shock damage tends to take out your shield when you're on Moes, and so having a resistance to the biggest thing to add damage is helpful, so I like having it. The other thing, the shotgun damage while sliding does me no good, but this is the last artifact I've found for my build. There's other things you might want more. Auto idle would be one I could think of that might do more for you for those times when you're running around on foot. If Auto Bear is still up somewhere behind you and you're running around on foot for some reason, the damage from that or the damage from your own weapons can help to heal you with auto idle. At any rate, I don't have a good Last Stand auto idle, so this is what I'm using instead. So I mentioned that the max health was beneficial, and it's beneficial for more than just keeping Moes alive, because max health gets rolled over into your armor that you get with Iron Bear. So the higher your max health, the higher Iron Bear's armor is. And that is why I use this shield, the Plus Ultra. Now the Plus Ultra is something you get from a DLC. You go to a place called Krieg's Mind, and one of the subsections there is the Benediction of Pain, which ends with Dr. Benedict, who drops this. There are other places to get it as well. It's a world drop. So the Plus Ultra drops from him, and this has a hidden benefit that's not listed on the card. You won't read it in the description, but at least according to Ludelman, and it appears to be the case in my testing, is that you get a 50% increase in your health when this is equipped. So with that 50% health increase, then that is rolling over to increased armor for Iron Bear. And also with this, you'll notice one of the augments that you get from this is 10% max health. Now there is a version of this Plus Ultra, I believe it's called the Multivitamin, which can give you 20% max health. That may be 25, I'm not sure. I don't have one. So you can get not only your 50% hidden increase in health, but you can also get a plus max health from here, 10%, which gets applied to the 50% addition, I would suppose. So this can increase your health quite a bit. Now, one of the reasons I like going for high health and rolling into the high armor on Iron Bear is, my take on this is, if you are getting 2.5% armor regeneration, then I'm assuming that that's regenerating 2.5% of your maximum armor. So if you have your health increased, that increases your Iron Bear and Auto Bear armor, and it seems to me, and I think I notice it when I'm in it, that that is giving you 2.5% armor regeneration of a larger armor pool for 8 seconds. And so when I'm in Iron Bear and I have the highest levels of armor up, then I notice that my healing tends to be even more robust, and I take even less damage, or seem to accrue less damage over time. Something that adds to that is the anointment that I've got in this Plus Ultra, which is, after exiting Iron Bear, gain 75% increased shields and health for 25 seconds. And I'm going to show you that here in just a second. So if you have something other than Rocketeer equipped, and you're regaining the ability to proc your skill within that 15-second window, or if it's under 25 seconds. I mean, ideally you want it under 15 seconds so you can proc it immediately and stay safe. But if not, then as long as it's under 25 seconds, then you carry over the 75% increase in your health into your Iron Bear. So let's show that. So I'm going to hop into my Iron Bear, and you'll notice that I have 6 million health at this point. That's kind of unusual. Usually I'm getting 5.5 million health, but I'll take it. So I'm going to hop out of here and get into Dakka Bear, which is what I would do if I were in an actual combat situation. And as soon as this ends, I should be able to immediately get back into Iron Bear, and you'll notice that the health should be increased quite a bit from that 6 million. Procking it immediately, and now I'm at 9.6 million health. So when I'm procking biofuel, that is giving you 2.5% of 9.6 million, which is quite a bit more than the 6 million, or what you might have if you were using a different type of a shield. So I find this is very effective at keeping your health up and your healing up and keeping you up. So, you will see when I go through the Maliwan Takedown, there are times that I'll be running with, 5-6 million health, and it seems to me, I notice that I'm healing better and taking less damage when I have the higher armor from having been in Iron Bear and fired it up within that 25 seconds that is required to get the increase in health rolled over into your armor. All right. Well, welcome back, and this is going to be the arms race section where I give some tips that I found helpful for running the arms race. But before we do, I need to correct an error I made in this morning's recording. I had the corrosive sabot rounds enabled on Iron Bear, and I didn't realize, but he was shooting off to the side where Graveward's hand comes down, so the earlier video had damage from Iron Bear and Dakka Bear both. So what I've done here is I've enabled Bear Fist in both slots, and he won't be able to reach Graveward, so you'll get a better idea of what the Dakka Bear damage is just on its own. So it will only take a few seconds, and then we'll go and head over to arms race. I'll show you the hand that I didn't realize he was firing at. There we go. And so he's gone, and you can see that that wasn't too much longer just using Dakka Bear. Truth in advertising. Okay, so here we are on Pandora in the Stormblind complex, and that's where arms race takes place. And what we're going to want to do when we land is there'll be a chest nearby, and we'll loot 4 white items from that. Usually it's 2 weapons and 2 shields. And then we're going to want to come over right where this marker is, which is close to the end boss. And there's a couple of vending machines there, and we're going to use that to help us get through this complex successfully. And what we're going to do to enable us to do that is to go into our vault cards, and we're going to spend a few keys and buy ourselves a very excellent weapon. So what we need besides that good weapon is a good shield, and that's what we're hoping we can do here. I'm going to land, and I'm going to find this chest, and we'll open it up, and hopefully what we can do also while we're running around just to get to the entrance is hopefully find some other chest or stash. We didn't, but we're very close to the entrance, so that's a good thing. Okay, and first thing I'm going to do is sell all of my gear, the white things we just picked up, and then buy the best shield that you're able to. I'm going to start this over so now you can see how much money you've got. So this is 568, and we have 597,000 available. Is this a shield that I actually want? Well, we get max health, a little bit low on the shield. See what else we got. I'd like something with a little more. Okay, can't afford that. Nothing good there. Okay, well, you buy the best shield that you can afford. Okay, so now I have that shield equipped, and we can switch this out if we get something better. But while we're here, we can now go into our vault cards and buy ourselves a troubleshooter SMG. So I've got 18 keys. This costs 5 keys. I press it once. I don't know if it went into my inventory. Let's check it again. Oh, I know what's going on. I didn't activate this vault card. There we go. Now I can buy it. There we go. Sorry about the delay on that. Alright, so now I have a good weapon and a good shield, or at least a halfway decent shield. And the thing about the troubleshooter, okay, it's a legendary weapon, and this its special thing is that it identifies the weakness of each target and it modifies the element type accordingly. So it's a decent damage legendary weapon. I mean, not one of the better ones in the game, but you know, for what you're doing here and the enemies you'll be facing, this is good enough. And so you've got this, it changes the element, and so that's very helpful. And now, so you've got two good things. So let's see where we are on the map. Well, when you're on the map here, you will see that there's various chests here. And for the items that I mentioned earlier, I believe that they're over in this chest over here. And that would be your Dark Army and your Plasma Coil. But they're not available, so we might do something else. You know, perhaps go to this chest over here, or maybe there's another chest over here that has some items we want. A lot of these chests have good items. So what you do is you would run to this chest, and the reason you don't go to the chest that you want is because of something called the murder cane. And so there's this big storm raging here, and it shrinks as the arms race goes on. That's why it's a race, because you have to get your loot and then get it out and get out of here before the murder cane, the hurricane, comes and kills you. So you might run over here and kill the enemies, get to here, loot this chest, and then you're going to need to get any good gear you find out. And so this is a gear extractor. These will be at different places each time. And so you need to find where this is and get over to here to get your loot that's worthwhile back to the bank vault that's on Sanctuary 3. At that point, you come running back here to where this final boss is. And when you get back here, so let's just say that I've gone out and done everything I needed to do. So what I'm going to do here at this point is I'm going to sell back my weapon and my shield. And I'm going to drop down here and do nothing. Just let this guy kill you. You'll respawn up at the top. And when you respawn up there, you'll be able to restart the arms race and buy back that good gear that you just sold by going to your chest, getting your 4 white items, and selling them, and then you can buy back your gun and your shield. So eventually you get a shield you really like to go along with the gun that's really worthwhile, and I'll just show you how that goes.
Ain't no rest.
So we're going to press the button here, go down again, loot our chest, go to the entrance, sell our white gear items, buy back our troubleshooter and our good shield, and then we're ready to do the arms race again. And you just keep doing this again and again. So kind of the only reason I'm doing this is to show you that you can go back and buy your stuff back and actually afford it. Because when you're buying stuff back, it's not as expensive as when you first get going. So let me take a look at where I'm at on the map. Yeah, it looks like I have to run all the way around. Okay. Not as convenient as I would have liked. So here's a landmark. There's a chest off to our left with dogs down there. Once you've done this a few times, you'll get to know that. And right around the corner here will be our vending machines. And so here we are. We sell our 4 white items. We go over here to the buyback. The first thing I'm going to buy back is my troubleshooter. And then the good shield. And here they are, equipped. You're now ready to find out what chests are available to you. You go collect the loot from the chest, take it to an extraction point, run back to the entrance, sell your gear, let the boss kill you, and you just keep doing this again and again and again, and that's how you farm this effectively without having to fight your way through the Stormline complex and all the enemies here using poor weapon. So it's very helpful if you do that. Okay? And we're going to be going off to the slaughter shaft next. Welcome to the Circle of Slaughter, a great place to farm eridium and cash and legendary items of all sorts. So I'm approaching this from the end game with mayhem levels activated, and I am doing this on mayhem level 10. And one of the reasons I'm doing that is because of the loot explosion. And the loot explosion increases your chance of dropping money and eridium, and so it just increases what you're getting from doing a run at the cost of giving various advantages to your enemies. These are a few I've found that are not too bothersome, but if you don't like them, down here on the lower right, you can see you can just re-roll these until you find something that you find less bothersome. I suggest you try them. They're not too hard to deal with. So besides loot explosion, I also have equipped my Racketeer, because I'm just going to be using Dakka Bear and letting Auto Bear do quite a bit of the fighting, and the Schluter. And the Schluter, as you can see, when you kill an enemy, it gives you plus 1,000% legendary drop chance, and that happens a lot, and so you get a lot of loot dropping. And so the Schluter is an item that you would get from this particular vault card. Once again, it's 5 keys, and so you just activate this vault card section, gain experience in order to get chests to open, and the chests give you keys quite often, and when you get 5 of them, you can buy yourself the Schluter. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I am just doing the last round in my Dakka Bear for the most part, and we're going to want to get through the last couple of waves of this. I've done everything else, the first 4 waves I've done, so we're in the 5th round. I misspoke, not the first 4 waves. I did the first 4 rounds, and so now we're doing the last round, and I've completed a couple of waves, and it's when you get to the last wave that things get interesting. There's a sequence that you do where you have to kill a couple of enemies, you go up above, you kill a couple more, and then a boss appears called the Titan, and he drops 500 eridium at a time. And so when you get to this point, what you want to be doing is just doing the very last round multiple times so that the iridium drops multiple times. So we're starting with a base over here on the lower right of 20,481 iridium. And so we're going to try and increase that and stay alive. So let's see what we got going here. Okay, so you can see we have completed 4 rounds. We're in the 5th round. And we've completed 3 waves, and we're in the 4th wave. And it's in the last wave, the 5th wave, that we can farm the eridium. Okay, so my timer was up. I'm just going to pop back up here. Jump into my Dakka Bear. I'm vulnerable now, but now I'm pretty safe. And what we want to do here is I want you to notice how many grenades are proccing. And that is because I've got a, when I take damage, proc a grenade on it. And those grenades are exploding, which does area damage, which procs Skagden, which procs biofuel, from which I get healing. I'm going to take a chance. You can go out and collect these guys, which drops a little bit of iridium on you. I've got my Guardian equipped. But at this point, I'm just letting Auto Bear pretty much do all the work. Okay, so now it's the last wave. And I'm going to pop over here. Re-equip my gun. Oops. And once again, I'm going to be using Auto Bear and jumping into Dakka Bear. But when you come over here in the last wave of the last round, you need to get rid of that guy. This guy over here. There'll be one over there. He may have already come out and been destroyed. So I suspect that I'm alright to go up to the upper deck. So you can see that green flash. That means my Schluter is engaged. And, oh, I've got 4 seconds to go. Alright, here we go. Now I'm just going to stay here. We need to kill a couple of enemies, but we don't want to kill too many. Oh, there. Because we want this guy. So, once again, I'm looking at 20,508 eridium. And when I kill this guy, he will drop a block of eridium. And there it did. So now I have 21,000. So we got our 500 eridium, and we don't want to finish this section. What we want to do is get out of here safely, and in order to do that, I'm going to unequip my recurring hex, and I'm just going to come over here and jump out someplace safe, and then fast travel back to the beginning of the slaughter shaft. Before I do, you'll notice that we're in the last wave of the last round. And when I go over here and just fast travel to the slaughter shaft, we are still in the last round, but all the waves have been reset. And so this way we can just go through the final, through these last 5 waves. And, well, we'll want to complete 4 of them and not complete the 5th one, because that allows us to just keep doing what I did and kill the Titan, get the 500 eridium, and then come back here. Okay, let me just get this out of the way just to well, allow you to see what I've got going on here. And I want to re-equip my recurring hex, because I don't know if you noticed it, but that was once again proccing grenades. And so when you do an area, you'll notice out there, you see all of those legendary drops out there. Well, I picked some up from the last round, and I just want to just quickly show you what sort of stuff that you get. So you're going to get all sorts of weapons. You're going to get shields. You're going to get, well, a cloning hex, so that's something I might consider using before getting a recurring hex. It splits into two, unlike my hex, which splits into a lot more. You will get class mods, so you'll be looking for something that gives you the augments and the skills that you want, and also artifacts. So here's a last stand splatter gun. Shock resistance is good. Shield recharge delay, not bad. Fight for your life. These are all okay. I don't know if I bother keeping this, but that just gives you the idea of the type of gear that you can collect here when you've got Loot Explosion and your Schluter equipped. So when you're done, I'm going to switch to my speed gun and just give you a quick example of how you run when you have your speed artifact. You'll notice I've got movement speed on this. So now I'm going to run around here and collect stuff. And I'm not bothering to pick up the legendaries now, but you can see that they're here for you to collect. And I'm just looking around to collect eridium. And what you would do is back there at that vending machine, just sell all of the legendaries that you found you didn't want. If you find something good, then that is good for you. And so after you collect all of these legendaries and sell them, then you come back here, you re-equip your guardian, and you're ready to start the round again. You go to the last wave. Once again, down here is where you have to kill the 3 enemies down below. There may be other ways to do it. I know that this works, so you may find a different way, but as long as it works, I'm going to continue to use it. Kill a couple up here. Don't kill too many enemies. Get the block of eridium from the Titan, which drops 500, and then you're ready to go back to wherever you want, and you just go back and fast travel to the entrance and just keep farming that. Okay, the next section we're going to go to is the Maliwan Takedown. I'm going to do that without narrating it, just so if you want to watch, you can see me go through it. I would ask that if you're interested in watching it, that you pay more attention to my armor. So at times I'll be, doing 5 million some armor, but if I pop out, then I will be having an increased armor, which comes from my shield, which has the anointment on it, which gives me plus 75%, which gives me a larger health pool. And I've already shown you that, but I'm just going to show you quick again, and then just quickly talk about it. So when I'm doing the Maliwan Takedown, if you're interested in watching that, you'll be able to see that sometimes I have the larger health pool, the larger armor pool. Wait a minute, it didn't happen. Oh, I know what happened. My bad. You have to make sure you don't have the Rocketeer equipped. And because I had the Rocketeer equipped, my cooldown was over 25 seconds. Normally you're just sitting up here, and then when he blows up, your cooldown's done. And then you just pop in, and you've got the increase from 5 million up into the 9 million plus range. And so there you see it's ready to go. And now I'm at 9,642,000 health. And you'll find that when you have that much health, that you're healing better and you're accruing less damage overall. So at any rate, if I repeated myself too much or made a few mistakes, I hope you'll forgive me. I'm getting ready to leave Borderlands 3, as I've done pretty much everything I wanted to do with it, and just wanted to share a few tips with you before I checked out to go on to newer games. But hope you learned something and that you enjoyed it. Be well.
Intel says there's an elevator down to the lower levels. Make your way there and be ready for some heavy resistance. I'm counting on you, Vault Hunter.
What the hell? Vault Hunters? How'd they find us?
advanced mechs, but we're after something bigger. Keep going. Now that is definitely your target! Light that giant bastard up!
Taking him back. Takedown confirmed. Woo!
Brilliant work, Vault Hunter! That ass kicking will make Maliwan think twice before they come at us again.